welcome everybody. I'm joined today with John Daw from Australian Wildlife Journeys. Welcome, John, all the way from Australia.
Hey, Julie, how are you today?
I'm
I should
great.
say g'day.
That's right. Good evening here. Good morning to you. How are you doing?
Very, very well. No, great to be with you, and hope everyone's doing well over in Canada and beautiful Edmonton.
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks for joining us today. Maybe just give us a little bit of background about Australian Wildlife Journeys and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. So Australian Wildlife Journeys, it's a relatively new organisation. We launched the group around 3 years ago, and it's a collective of Australia's leading wildlife tour operators. So we cover both marine experiences and we like to call them land safaris across Australia. So the group was built on a few key pillars, I guess you could say. The main one is observation in the wild. So something that we're really passionate about is increasing the number of travellers that are going out, seeing all our amazing animals across Australia, but doing it in a wild setting, because we think that's the way that wildlife is best viewed, seeing their natural behaviours, and on the other side of that, also helping to protect the habitat that is obviously key for a lot of the species survival. So observation in the wild is our key point there. But the other nice thing about the collective, it's a group of family businesses, and that's something that a lot of travellers are really looking for these days. It's been able to connect with the community, family businesses that they know the money is being kept in those regional economies, which we think is really important as well. And finally, the third key point is that real focus on responsible travel and sustainability. So wildlife, it's one of those areas that people are really interested in. I think there's this increased awareness across the globe of people wanting to contribute to a better future for wildlife. And we definitely want to be a part of that. So it's not only educating guests whilst they're on tour, but we're also trying to create a series of activities that they can actually partake in that help us to do that. So it's just not the operators that are involved with these projects, it's giving clients the opportunity to do that as well.
Oh, that's excellent. So that kind of goes into my next question is, how do these companies become a part of the collection? What kind of, so obviously there are conservation efforts and things like that, but what else would there be?
Yeah, so there's a series of criteria that we came up with. Those were the main three, but aside from that, a really important point is the hospitality aspect and the guiding quality. So if you're relying on seeing animals in the wild, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, but especially Australia, you really need high quality guides that are knowledgeable, personable, have that Australian character or that flair that, you know, international travellers love. It's such an important part of why they come here to Australia. So that's certainly a key point. It's with all the experiences that we have, we make sure that there's, I guess, that 4 or 5 star option available all the way through to camping. So being able to cater to travellers, whatever price point they're looking at, because for us, a lot of people, for our experiences, they would prefer to spend the money on the experience or the guiding rather than the accommodation. They're okay with perhaps a 3 or 4 star option. So being able to cater to whatever taste people have is important for us as well. And then on the environmental front, it's going through a whole lot of different criteria. And as I mentioned before, for us, being able to lead the way really means being able to measure what we're doing. So that's a key component, and this guest interaction is just becoming a really important part, and citizen science, which a lot of consumers are sort of hanging on to now, where they're going out via their smartphones or other iPads, whatever it might be, and contributing to sightings of different animals that are being studied, which is a really awesome new development with technology.
Right on. That's so neat. And you touched on the conservation, and I know that it's important for you, your company, to bridge the gap between conservation and tourism. How do you go about that?
How do we promote that?
Or how do you go about that?
Oh, sorry, how do you go about that? So essentially, it started off with developing those experiences when we formed the organisation. So for a number of the members, that already had very established programs in place. So Echidna Walkabout, based out of Melbourne in Victoria, is probably the best known. So the founder, Janine Duffy, has been highly involved with koala research for many, many years. And she started a foundation called the Koala Clancy Foundation. And that's an amazing program. It's basically a program where travellers go out and they assist with pulling out a noxious weed called boneseed, which is native to South Africa. And the thing with this boneseed weed is it limits the koala from expanding on their habitat, because for whatever reason, they won't use gum trees that have this boneseed noxious weed growing around the base. So through the years, that program and travellers from around the world have pulled out thousands of weeds that has opened up koala habitat that's allowed that population to flourish in a way that wouldn't have been possible without travellers from around the globe. So essentially taking those sorts of programs and expanding that across the collective. So for example, we've got programs off Ningaloo Reef, tracking the whale sharks, and Manta Ray, a program called Project Manta, where guests can get involved. Off Western Australia as well, we work with a company called Naturalist Charters, who offer amazing whale watching adventures, but one particular is the orcas off a place called Bremer Bay. They do a whole lot of research with water quality. They do pelagic bird surveys, as well as an amazing program tracking the orcas. So they're heavily involved with scientific research there. Places like Kangaroo Island, we work with the Nature Foundation SA, looking at glossy black cockatoos, contributing funding to their organisation. And recently, with the bushfires that a number of people would be aware of, also working with land management groups like KI Land for Wildlife. So there's a series of dates over July and August where we're working with that group to improve the habitat, whatever they need assistance with, whether that's tree planting, whether that's fencing to keep out noxious weeds or species. So that's a really nice way, a tangible way that people can contribute. So marketing those, to your point though, it's something that people are becoming more and more aware of, the importance of giving back whilst they're traveling. And I'm sure you hear that all the time, that yes, people want to do their 2 or 3 day experience and really delve into a destination, meet the local characters, but they also want an opportunity to give back during that trip. And it's not necessarily going to be a volunteerism situation where they're working for 5 or 6 days on a particular project. It might be a half day type contribution. But the thing I always tell travellers is that if everyone contributed with a half day volunteerism type experience, then it'd be an amazing thing for habitats, not only across Australia, but everywhere around the world. So yeah, it's one of those things that media love, and it's getting more and more media attention, because there is that trend now that people want to give back. So being able to be at the forefront of that is a key point of the organisation. So
that's awesome. It's such it's a, like, most people have heard about the sustainability. I feel like that word's kind of been overused, but it sounds like you guys are going a step forward and not wanting to leave things, the way they were, but actually make it better and focus on the regeneration as opposed to just being sustainable, but make it actually better than we found it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely spot on. When we formed the collective, that was one of our key terms that we were using, that we wanted to go beyond sustainability, because more and more tourism operators are sort of working in that space and doing some great things. But for us, it's an opportunity that does exactly that. It goes that step further and improves things, because there's been a lot of damage, unfortunately, done across the globe, and Australia's not immune to that by any means. We've got the worst mammal extinction rate, unfortunately, in the world, and a lot of that's been due to clearing, and feral animals, unfortunately, have really decimated our native populations here. So working with groups that can help to reverse some of that damage, we find is critical, because we can only offer these wildlife tours as long as the wildlife is there. So that's a really important point that we need to remember.
Exactly. That's great. I know something that is also really important is supporting the local communities. And I think by doing that, these organizations or companies that are part of the Australian Wildlife Journeys are, like you said, the family-run companies. So in turn, it is indirectly supporting local communities. But can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's certainly a priority for the members where possible, because for us, if you're really telling that story of the region, you need to connect with community members. But things like using local produce and vendors, that's an important part of that sense of place. So if you're going to Tasmania or Kangaroo Island or to far north Queensland, getting a slice of what life is like in each of those regions. And that's an important point, I think, with Australian Wildlife Journeys, is that, yes, for most people who book our experiences, there's a love of wildlife, but it's not the sole reason that they're going. They're going to get that cultural element, maybe that food and wine or that culinary element that Australia has in droves is a major reason that people love to come to Australia and come back. So really showcasing those local providores or vendors in the experiences is really key for us. And there's all sorts of things that you can do. I mean, often people will book a particular tour or experience, more so if it's private, and we'll just adapt the itinerary. And once you get talking to the travellers, that, oh, you've got an interest in such and such, because they're family companies, they'll know all the local characters around the place. Go, oh, hang on, I'll just ring up Terry and we'll pop in for a cup of tea and we'll talk about this, or look at the way that he makes his honey, or look at particular art studios. So that's something that local companies can do better than others. It's that link to special interests and passions that travellers have once they land on the ground that often you don't know until you're actually sitting in the car and start the tour.
Yeah, exactly. I think next time I come, I would love to see, and I know that's the thing about nature, you can never plan it, but I'd love to see a baby wombat in the wild. I just think they're the absolute cutest.
They are. And I've got to say, there's some great wombat viewing all around Australia, but Tasmania, it really is unique in that respect. And particularly a place called Maria Island off the east coast of Tassie. It's an amazing place to see wombats, and there's little baby wombats running around everywhere. So it's just a really special experience to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just on that note, are there a couple maybe of your signature experiences that you could share with everyone? Yeah,
it's really hard to pick my favourite. It's like picking your favourite child or something like that. They all have their unique elements, and that's something great about Australia, because it is a large continent, is that every different state is so different in terms of what you're going to see and the type of habitat that you're looking at. I mean, some of the newer experiences, and I'm really excited about, the humpback whale swim is one that a lot of people dream of doing, and that's been something that's been added off the coast of Western Australia up in Ningaloo with Exmouth diving whale sharks in the last few years. So I know I'm really keen personally to do that, because a lot of people have done the whale shark swim, which is simply incredible, but the humpback whale swim, I guess, has that sort of spiritual element for a lot of people. So I'm really looking forward to doing that.
Absolutely.
Also, up in far north Queensland, up in the Daintree, we've started working with a private conservancy called the Shared Earth Reserve. This is about 90 minutes drive from Cairns, which is the major gateway for far north Queensland. So I haven't been out there as yet, but it's a fairly new reserve that's been established. Great for bird watching and all those tropical marsupials that live up in far north Queensland, which is so different to where I live here in South Australia. So that's one that I'm looking forward to going to see. And look, things like swimming with sea lions, if people haven't done that before, it's an amazing interactive experience. They're like little puppy dogs, and our sea lions are, I think, the prettiest species across the globe compared to other sea lions, compared to the Californian, for example. They're really, really attractive.
They're so cute too. Their
Yeah,
faces, they're adorable.
they are adorable. So, but the best part of that is that it's almost like, as I said, they're puppy dogs mimicking what you're doing, and it's such an interactive experience. And they come to you, so it's not a situation where you can swim after them. You'll never catch them. Obviously, it's all about being in the moment and letting them experience what it's like to swim with a human, which is an amazing experience for both parties.
I bet. That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, there's so many. I bet we could talk for hours. You could tell us about all of your, sorry to put you on the spot to tell you,
No.
tell us about your favorite.
It is really tricky. I'm a bit of a bird watcher. So a lot of people, though, it's not necessarily that one interaction. It's that sense of space and going out to these amazing national parks and landscapes where you can't see anyone. I think that sense of solitude is something more and more people are looking for, and that escape. And certainly Australia allows you to do that. I mean, we've got a fairly small population, but a huge land mass and plenty of open spaces. So
absolutely. So many unique and so different from Canada. Like, I think, and plus different from Canada with, in terms of landscape and wildlife and everything, but also we have such a commonality. Like, I feel like Australians and Canadians, that it's kind of like a second home. I feel like you guys are cousins. So
yeah, it's very true. It's very true. Yeah.
So it's,
we certainly feel comfortable over there, and I think vice versa. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's always a good time when Canadians and Aussies get together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I know as soon as, this whole situation passes, people are going to be eager to jump on planes and travel and just experience more. And I think, like you were saying, I think there is definitely a draw to experience these, have these local experiences, meet locals and find out, how they do life. And then also just be in places where, with your family or your loved ones or a small group, and be experiencing things together, just you and not, and nature and wildlife, and just taking it all in. So thank you. This has been so wonderful. And I'll definitely share some images and some videos and stuff from the website and your YouTube channel. I'll share that with everyone, and we're excited to connect with you and send Canadians over.
No, absolute pleasure, Julie, and we can't wait to have everyone back to Australia, hopefully later this year or next year. And the wildlife's still there. That's the good news, and we're still love to host Canadians. So we look forward to that. Absolutely. Sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'll be in touch.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye.